Good afternoon, welcome back to my channel. My name is Charlotte and this is Charlotteshelves. In today's video, I am bringing you a spooky season edition of Read or Unhaul That book. We are well into October and I am conscious that there are still so many books that I want to get to that are on my TBR, and I don't want to have to wait until next spooky season to make a decision about whether to keep them, to haul them, or whether to hang on to them for another year. So today I'm going to try and read either the first chapter or the first 30 or so pages of each book to see if they're worth carrying on reading and keeping on my TBR, and if not, they have to go. They have to go. Horror books are some of the largest amount that I have that are outstanding on my TBR because I have saved a number of them for this time of year, but I have overcommitted and I realise I'm just not going to be able to get to some of these. So come with me as I try and get through some of my TBR and hopefully find some that are worth keeping and some that are just going to have to go. I've got a stack here that I have identified that are on my TBR. If you've seen my previous spooky season TBR, I have definitely spoken about some of these. The first one I'm going to touch on is the one that I've got on the top. I'm going to start with Rosemary's Baby. I've wanted to read this for a long time. I really like IR11. I've only read Stepford Wives and I thought that was creepy and really unique, so I want to read more of their work, but this has been on my TBR for about a year and I need to either read it or unhaul it. How long is the first chapter? So the first chapter is 17 pages. So let's see how that goes. Maybe I'll read 2 chapters to see how that is. The reason I wanted to read Rosemary's Baby is because it's quoted as being a masterful use of psychological horror. It does this through paranoia, gaslighting, and psychological manipulation. But additionally, I'm just reading this on a review site, it says that there's themes of body horror. It's quite an early example of body horror because the lead character, she's pregnant at the time, and it's kind of about body autonomy and some of those themes, and I thought that sounded really arresting. But also because of the themes of Satanism and the occult, I believe this was written at or on the cusp of the satanic panic in America at the time. This was written in the 60s, and I think this probably tapped into a lot of those cultural anxieties. If you've already read this book, do let me know if that's accurate. Some of the religious themes in here I think were quite controversial at the time, and I find that really exciting and interesting, and it makes the book even more intriguing. So let's read the first couple of chapters and see if we're going to keep this or unhaul it. I've realised I didn't give you even a plot summary about what this book is about, because if you've not heard of Rosemary's Baby before or are going in totally blind, that might actually be helpful to provide you with some context for what I'm reading. So the plot is loosely that a young woman moves into this gorgeous apartment building that her and her husband have had their eye on, and they have plans to start a family. She becomes pregnant and the plot is mostly preoccupied with a growing paranoia within her that there is something actually not quite right about this gorgeous apartment block and the residents that live there. And from the film, which is what I've seen so far, she has this mounting paranoia and it's quite twisty. You don't know if it's justified or not, but she starts to get these really wild suspicions that people in the building are perhaps members of the occult, or there are some satanic elements. And the movie adaptation, the film just kind of builds and builds this sense of dread about whether her suspicions are true or not, or whether there's something terrifying that is going to happen in the building, not only to her but also her baby, or is this all a psychological delusion? So that is what the book is about. I'm going to carry on reading and I'll give you some thoughts in a little bit. I have just finished the first 2 chapters of Rosemary's Baby and I really like it. It's very easy to read and straight away you are in with the plot. They have, within those first 2 chapters, moved into this new building and it has already laid some foundation work for some spooky rumours, some ominous history belonging to residents that have previously lived at this address and had unusual deaths. Based on those first 2 chapters, I am definitely going to continue reading this. The one thing that I am curious about is, because I know certain plot lines and this particularly curious ending because I've seen the movie adaptation. I do have concerns that the book might not be quite as impactful. I don't know if it will still build the same sense of dread or certain feelings that the movie does in terms of the psychological aspects and the paranoia if I know what certain things actually are. I hope it won't diminish my pleasure of reading this too much, but for the first 30 or so pages, this is a yes, I'm going to carry on. The second book I have talked about a couple of times on my channel. It is Harry Potter, A History of Magic. This was an exhibition a few years back that was held and curated by the British Library. It is not only a history of magic, but it is also all sorts of items from their archives and special collections. So this is a real intersection of my interests really, which is rare books, but also history. And this is described on the blurb as, you are invited to explore the history of magic. Prepare to encounter weird, wonderful and inspiring artifacts from the British Library and unseen treasures from J.K. Rowling's personal collection. Pore over ancient spellbooks, marvel at celestial globes and delve into Hogwarts curriculum. From astronomy, potions, charms, divination, you are guided by a host of experts. The intersection between myth, history and the magic of Harry Potter stories has never been so enthralling. This is the ultimate companion to the British Library's magical Harry Potter exhibition. I was gifted this in the summer and I honestly thought I would have got around to it sooner because I had wanted to read this for quite a while, and I feel like reading a book about the history of magic from an academic sense would be perfect for Halloween and spooky season. So I really want to try and read the first 30 or so pages. I don't know if this has chapters in a traditional sense, but I just feel like if I don't read it this year, it is just gonna sit on my table like a sort of coffee book and never be appreciated or read. So I really want to try and read it now. I need to make myself some lunch, but I also need to feed my puppy dog who's been snoozing outside. Hello, look at the state of you. We went for a very muddy walk this morning. Okay, let's get some food and do some more reading, yeah? I have appraised the contents of our fridge and there is very little. We are due a food shop. So I have done a little order on delivery for Gales for some lunch. It is going to take nearly an hour to get here, I think, based on their timings, because I have ordered it at peak lunchtime, which was silly of me. I should have been more proactive about organising food for today. So whilst I wait for that to come, I am just going to read 30 or so pages of this, looking at the choices of rare books and other literary ephemera that they have chosen for this. And I just wish I could have seen this exhibition. It would have been so fun and immersive. It's so well researched. I'll make sure to include a couple of clips of some of the cool bits and pieces that are in this. I mean, cool to me anyway. So I have sat here and just read the first 40 or so pages, and I am going to keep on reading this. I think it's going to be really interesting. I think maybe when I had a first look at this in the summer, I maybe wasn't in the right headspace for it, but I've already learnt in the space of 40 pages so many interesting little facts and interesting bits and pieces that I think this is going to be titillating enough to keep me going through reading the next 250 odd pages that I left. I think this book is only 300 odd pages, so I'm definitely going to keep on reading this, and I'm going to keep this. So that's 2 for 2 so far. Look at this cozy boy. Hey, are you comfy? Sorry, did I disturb you? Yeah. The next book on my TBR is a Stephen King, and I love Stephen King, but this is a more recent one, and it's just been on my TBR for about a year. I picked this one to read in spooky season because I thought it sounded, I just thought it sounded perfect. I'm probably going to say that about every book, but this is Revival. So Revival is described as a dark, slow-burning horror novel that explores faith, obsession, and the terrifying unknown. It follows the intertwined lives of Jamie Morton, a struggling musician, and Charles Jacob, a former minister turned obsessed experimenter with the forces of life and death. As Jacob delves deeper into forbidden science and the mysteries beyond the veil, the story culminates in a chilling revelation about what may truly lie after death. So this seems like it's another horror novel that also deals with some religious themes, perhaps. This, I think, came out in 2014, and I'm going to read the first chapter or two, or the first 30-something odd pages, and I'll see how I find it. Really cold. Let's get a jumper and carry on reading. We might need to get a little bit cozy to get through the next 4 or 5 books. The temperature has definitely dropped today. It was sunny yesterday. Not that I'm complaining at all. I love when it's this kind of weather. Naughty boy. Hello. As it is spooky season, you know which jumper we're going to put on. We are going to put on our favourite skull jumper, the one that we own 3 versions of, because it is warm and practical, also a little bit spooky and cute. I love this jumper. My niece gifted me a little blue box at the weekend, and one of the things in it was this little Dr. Ghost decoration. I don't know if you can see because there's reflections, but there's a little ghost. And then she also got me this super cute bookmark. Let me see if I can find it. How cool is that? And it's made of metal. Because I have so many books on the go, I need an above average number of bookmarks. So that's perfect. This is a poem for the day. So every day of the year there is a poem. I started this at the start of October. So that's going to carry me through for the rest of the year. I have read the first chapter and a bit of Revival. I think it's okay. I am going to keep it because I do want to read this. I want to read all Stephen King's books. So this would, if it wasn't Stephen King, I don't know if it would be a yes. My love for him is carrying a lot of the heavy lifting in this. This is a slower build, I think this is going to be. We've instantly been introduced to the child, who I think is the lead protagonist, but also that mysterious, do they call them pastors? Vicars? What is he called? He's called a minister, sorry. He's called a minister. We've already been introduced to him and his love of electricity and playing with the elements, but also straight away there is heavy thematic religious imagery and language, which I really enjoy. I also love how King writes the experience of childhood through children's eyes. I think that was something that was most powerful about the novel It. I never for a second questioned that I was reading this horror narrative through the eyes of children or young adults. It was excellent, and I think we're going to get something similar with one of the characters being very young in this book. So that is another yes. So that the next book I have is non-fiction, and this is called Plagues and Peoples, and that cover is glorious. Can you see? Oh, is that focusing? Yes. This, I believe, is a history book about the history of plague. I find this thematically quite interesting in literature. Something I loved a lot about studying works from the Renaissance, because there was a lot of influence as a result of the plague, and I don't know if this is going to cover the influence of plague in terms of art and literature and music and things like that, or whether it's just a straight up history about how plagues have affected civilizations. Some of the blurbs for it say that seldom in recent times has a new historical work drawn as much attention as Plagues and Peoples. This is an account of the effects of disease on human history. It is a remarkable book. It says, this is a fascinating exercise in historical speculation, and they argue convincingly for the extraordinary impact of disease on human history. I think this is also going to be a curious one to try and read the first chapter or 30 pages of, because the introduction actually starts how this book happened, and the academic is kind of explaining their approach to this area of study, but also what influenced them to write this and what their kind of concerns and preoccupations are with this, with some of the analysis that they've applied in this text. I've been sat here sort of reading through the introduction. It's only 13 pages or so, and just from the introduction, I'm not sure it's going to be for me. It's just not quite what I'm interested in. I'm going to read this first chapter, which is kind of, I think, priming us for what is going to come later. That takes us up to 30 pages. And I'm going to see if this first chapter encourages me to read more, and also if I like his academic style of writing, because the introduction wasn't too bad. It's not dry at all, which is always lovely and refreshing. This is our lunch. It looks glorious. It is just a regular croissant with some ham. I think there's a bit of, I beg your pardon, a bit of bechamel, and there's different cheeses and things, and that just looks delicious. You can't have any more, baby. Hello, welcome back. We have finished our lunch and finished reading 30 something or so odd pages of this non-fiction work, and it is not for me. I think a bit like I need to justify why I don't want to read a book, and I think if you're not enjoying a book, and I have really known from the outset of reading this, both the introduction and that first essay, it's not for me, and that's okay. So I'm gonna let this one go. So we have got 4 yeses on the TBR and 1 to unhaul. Whilst we are reading non-fiction, I do have another non-fiction. Oh, hello, sorry. I do have another non-fiction that is also a sort of history book that has been on my TBR for at least 2 years. I put it on my spooky season TBR last year and didn't get around to reading it. This book I largely, he said, which is Fear. Hello. What's wrong? You've just had a drink. Itchy. This was that book that, I'm not gonna lie, when my other half said he wanted to read it, I thought instantly, this looks like a bit of me. I love this image on the cover. Like, I would keep it just for how aesthetic and gorgeous, like, the design of this is. I just think it's so chic and gorgeous, and I just love that image of the plague doctor mask. This is also meant to be a history of fear. It says an alternative history of the world. This academic considers the role that fear has played in world history, showing how it has been both a coercive tool of power and a catalyst for radical change. He tells a transformative new story of the world, beginning with the Black Death in the 14th century, moving through the terror of the French Revolution, Cold War paranoia, modern market crashes, and the AIDS pandemic into the digital age, marked by uniquely 21st century fears. But what did fear mean to us in the past, and how can understanding it equip us to face the future? Through the stories of the people and the moments that changed history, this landmark work reveals how fear and panic made us who we are. To me that sounds fascinating, but I've never wanted to pick this up. Let's get a little bit comfy and put the electric blanket on and read a little bit of this. I'm reading the preface at the moment just for context, talking about why they've chosen this particular subject matter. I think I am just fundamentally uninterested in the subject itself. I don't think I'm actually that interested in reading about the history of fear and how it might have been used as a tool of power and coercion, and I just don't think it's that interesting actually to me. For the correct person, this could be a wonderful book. It's well written from what I have read so far. I just don't perceive myself pushing on and reading any more of it, which is kind of what I thought going into it, because like I said, it had been on my TBR for such a long time. But this will make a nice donation, and I hope the right person finds this who is actually interested in it. Hello, a little recap so far. We have read 5 books, 3 we are keeping, to We Are Unhauling, and I have 2 more that I would like to try and read the first 30 or so pages of today, or the first chapter of. I need to do a little bit of work, so I'm going to take a brief pause here, and it will also give my brain a little beat of time just to recover, because it feels quite erratic or peripatetic to bounce between 5 very different types of book and read 30 pages, 30 pages, 30 pages, 30 pages, and then make a decision. I've realised it's a little bit draining, so I might try and read the other 2. Like, I think I can commit to another 60 pages this evening potentially, but if not, like I said, I need to do a little bit of work, so if I don't have time, I will touch base with you tomorrow. I might see you in the morning. Good morning. It is early-ish. It's the next day, and we're cracking on with a bit more of our unhauling. The next bit I had was Hex. This is described, I'll read you the blurb quickly. It says, "Welcome to Black Spring, a picturesque town with an ugly secret. A 17th century woman with sewn shut eyes and mouths mouth singular, walks its streets, enters its homes and watches its people when they sleep. They call her the Black Rock Witch. So accustomed to her presence, the townfolk often forget what will happen if her eyes ever open. To protect themselves, the Black Spring elders use high-tech surveillance to quarantine the town. Frustrated with the lockdown, the town's teenagers decide to break the rules and go viral with the haunting, but no one foresees the dark nightmare that awaits them all." This had been on my TBR since February, and I decided to try and read the first 30 pages or so last night, and I couldn't even get through the first 30 pages. I did not enjoy it, and I was quite disappointed. I don't know if because I had built this one up in my head a bit too much, I was feeling really let down. Also, I'm realising sometimes 30 pages isn't quite enough with horrors, where you need to build up some of that plot and get some exposition in, and I felt like this was one where if I didn't have a TBR that was the size of the moon right now, I may have hung on to it a little bit longer. But this is one that I think in the future, if I feel like I'm inclined to read it again, I can always grab a copy on Kindle. That's kind of what I say to myself. Like, even though I've physically let it go, if there is some bookish related emergency in which I desperately suddenly need to read a copy of this, I know that I can grab a copy online. But for now, I'm letting this go. So that is, how many have we done? 3 to go. 3 or 4 to keep, but there's 1 book left. I am going to take my puppy dog for a walk, and then I will touch in with you later, because my final book, I'm really looking forward to reading. I don't hold me to it, but I think this is one I'm going to want to keep, but we shall see. Good afternoon. It is a little bit later. I have 1 book left to read or unhaul. I'm just going to share that with you. Let me grab it. This is the final book. This is Hauntings, a book of ghosts and where to find them, a history of more than 25 eerie places across the UK. This was on my seasonal TBR because, like I said, I really want to read it this October. This was a present from my best friend, so I'm hoping it's good. I don't want to get rid of it. I would feel terrible getting rid of a gift book. This is described as Neil Oliver, the author, travels the British Isles on a spine-chilling tour that spans several centuries, explores vicarages, towers, lonely shorelines, cemeteries, ancient battlefields, to probe why our emotions and senses are heightened in certain locations, where the separation between dimensions seems gossamer thin. Invoking his family's history, alongside that of betrayed kings and beheaded queens, trapped nuns and lost children, he demonstrates that our landscape is riddled with such places, all creaking under the weight of the secrets that they hold. We'll get through a couple of myths or stories in the first 30 or so pages. Okay, let's see if we like his writing style, because I think that's what's going to really sell it. I think because each of these chapters is a contained, spooky, haunting or mystery, I think I'll get a good sense of his writing from the first 2, and if I don't like those first 2, then it will be okay to let it go. But I've seen here the Pendle Hill Witches, which I think is really fascinating, and the Glamor's Castle as well. Those are 2 that I really find interesting. Also, you've got the Tower of London of all places. Amazing. Borley Rectory. Oh, I really want to go there. I've listened to so many podcasts on it as well. Let's get some water, and then we'll go sit. It is still quite warm out, which for October I think I'm going to sit on my patio steps for a little bit and read some of this so that I get a little bit of autumnal sunshine. I was also given this ghosty lolly as part of my little boo box with my niece, and I think I'm going to have this. Like, that just seems like the perfect pairing, doesn't it? A little chalky lolly, and yeah. Hello, we have finished our reading of the Hauntings book. I will let you know my thoughts in a second. First, I'm going to walk you through the books that I've decided to keep. These are Rosemary's Baby. I really enjoyed this. It's the next day and I'm still thinking about just the couple of chapters that I read yesterday, and I'm looking forward to getting back into this one. Next we have Revival by Stephen King. This was slower in terms of pacing, but it made me realise I do want to read this. I do want to keep a copy of it. I might not get to it this October based on all the other books that are still on my TBR, but now I know I've confirmed that I want to keep it. I'm happy that I had that process and that chance to do so. The final one that I am keeping is the Harry Potter, A History of Magic. I read, I think 50 or so pages yesterday actually, and then today I've read another 30 or so just while I was having a bit of breakfast, and this I'm very much enjoying. And also I'm enjoying reading it just slowly and taking time to learn about the different parts of the collection that they curated for this exhibition. Like, I'm able to enjoy it at a slow, meditative and quite delicious pace. Like, I'm not rushing through it to get another book ticked off kind of thing. I'm very much enjoying this. So that leaves the 4 books that I am unhauling. The first one, I can't remember which order I read these in. Plagues and People, this non-fiction academic work, kind of about a history of a plague, but there's a lot more to it. Just wasn't for me, and it also wasn't quite what I was expecting it to be about, and that's fine. So we're gonna unhaul this. The second one is the one that has been on my TBR a good couple of years. I finally got around to reading it and it was not for me. I feel a smidge guilty about getting rid of it, but I know I'm not going to read it, and that's what this challenge does. It forces you to actually consider the items on your TBR and give them a chance, and I have given it a chance and it hasn't passed the test. The next book that I'm getting rid of is Hex. I thought this was going to be a perfect witchy, atmospheric, spooky kind of read, but I just found the introduction dull. That's my own personal taste. Maybe this is one of those that someone will tell me in the comments I needed to push through a little bit with, but for now it is one that I am letting go of. And then the final book, which I am so surprised about, I'm gonna eat my words from earlier, I'm gonna let this go. It's like, I think this cover is incredible. Everything on paper about this should be ticking all those boxes, but when I was actually reading it, I just found I didn't care for the writing style, and I think I gave this a good 40 or so pages in the end as well. I feel like 40 pages to 50, if that's not enough, I don't know what is. And I think I read 3 stories in the end. They were all very different parts of the country, different hauntings in that regard. It just wasn't compelling enough. And then I have one book that wasn't in this video that when I was looking at my TBR again, I thought, you know what, that one can go. And I think it's one, again, that I'm not gonna get to it anytime soon. I'm also not sure at the moment that I want to be reading a lot of true crime related things, and this is a true crime book, and I'm taking a bit of a break from true crime, kind of for my mental health really. So this one I'm going to let go, and that is Love As Always, Mum, and that's by Mae West. She was the daughter of Fred and Rosemary West, and it is a autobiography that she wrote in collaboration with Neil Mackay, and it's meant to be quite a distressing document of her life and what she experienced in that house. I don't feel like I'm resilient enough right now to read something that could be quite harrowing and graphic. From our original TBR, we have saved 3 that we are really excited and happy to have kept and started reading. And then there are 5 here that I am going to let go of. That's quite surprising, but I'm happy. I gave them chances. They didn't pass the test, and that's okay. And hopefully they will go to some bookish homes where someone will actually appreciate them and perhaps enjoy what's between these pages. If you have made it this far, thank you so much for watching and spending the time with me while I just read some spooky books and try and make some decisions. I really appreciate you spending the time with me. I'm quite lucky in the respect that I am just a tiny channel with 2 or 3 followers. I notice and appreciate all your comments, and I am able to, at this point in my YouTube career, like, I'm able to read and get to know each of you, and I appreciate every individual comment that you take the time to write on my videos. I truly do. And thank you for stopping by and spending time with me. I appreciate how busy everyone is these days. I appreciate how busy life can be. And I know as it comes up to Christmas, we're just gonna get busier and busier. So it is not unnoticed or unappreciated whenever you spend time by clicking on this video and spending some time with me. That being said, please do like, comment, and subscribe if you aren't already. I have a couple more spooky season videos coming up, and I will speak to you very soon.